Hello and welcome back to In Defence of the Traditional Martial Arts. I spent a little bit of time in last week watching the Martial Man videos, his YouTube channel, and it's kind of linked in with my video from last week. And the guy, like, seriously, I think he's allergic to his teacher because his teacher just has to touch him and he either like drops down, falls over, gets propelled across the room, or acts like he's had an electric shock. And it got me to thinking, is it that he's that in awe of his teacher? Is it that it's some sort of hypnosis and that's why he acts the way he is? Or is he a con artist? And the more videos I watch and the more I look at things he's doing, like his online courses and how much he's just trying to sell stuff, he's a con artist. That's what I think. And in today's information-rich world that we live in, Google is at your fingertips at all times. You kind of wonder how people like this get away with it. And my thoughts are that there's just so many people that, rather than want to put hard work in, they just want to live that comforting lie that they can do a few breathing exercises and all of a sudden they're going to be indestructible and touch people and make them fall over. But in the comments of one of these videos, coming across the same usual: Tai Chi doesn't work, Tai Chi is not a martial art, people who do Tai Chi can't fight. And there was a comment there about my one of my former teachers, the head of our Tai Chi style, the Wudang Tai Chi Chaun. And I replied to this man, and I wanted to make sure I got my old instructor's name spelt right, so I googled it and I come across a couple of books I never knew existed, and I'm really excited to read them. I've ordered both of them. But yeah, I responded to this man, and it was interesting because I assumed that he was one of Dan's students from back in the day, or still carrying on with his Wudang Tai Chi. But this man had never met him. He was involved in the martial arts community back in the 90s, and he was just talking about Dan from his reputation. And he mentioned that he'd even written an article like in response to some of Dan Doherty's thoughts on Tai Chi, because looking back on it, I used to think Dan Doherty was the coolest man on the planet, and anything he said was obviously gospel. And looking back, this man has good points, which was that Dan Doherty, according to him, was the only person that was teaching real Tai Chi in the UK, and that all other Tai Chi wasn't real. He was the only one that knew the full system. He was the only one that knew a lot of things. And I kind of go along with him to an extent. He certainly, he was like an academic, like when it came to the history of Tai Chi, to like the classics and the theory behind Tai Chi. And he also knew how to fight. And it's what this man commenting also like mentioned, is the fact that he'd never met Dan, but and he was widely held with contempt in the martial arts community, the Chinese martial arts community back then, for his thoughts. But what was like indisputable was the fact that Dan Doherty could fight. And so that was quite fun. It was like a ghost coming back into my life, like seeing these books that I never knew existed. The first one came out in 2020, and it's called The Wild Colonial Boy, and it's an autobiographical novel. I'm hoping he isn't hamming it up too much, because I think the kind of life that he led, going over to Hong Kong and joining the Hong Kong police force and learning Tai Chi and competing and fighting, I really don't think he'll need to ham it up that much. And when I was training with him, when he was my teacher, he was in his 40s, he was well established, he was already notorious in the Tai Chi community, and he wrote books. He was like a regular contributor to all the martial arts magazines back then, like Combat Magazine and like Fighting Arts International and all those sort of magazines that just don't exist anymore, thanks internet. And yeah, but the stories about what he got up to in his youth were kind of legendary, and it'll be nice to read this book and see which ones are true and to read them in his own words. Second book is Decoding the Classics for Modern Martial Artists. Now, the thing I always loved about Tai Chi was that the theory side of it seemed to be just as important as the practical side. That Tai Chi doesn't really exist without like Taoism, and I left Tai Chi sort of training like a long time ago, but something I've always kept with me is like the Taoism. It's I wouldn't say I'm a Taoist, but I there's aspects of my life that have helped me out immensely, like mental health, like just staying calm and less stressed in this world that we live in because of Taoist philosophies and practices that I continue to this day. And yeah, part of that is the Tai Chi classics. There's written like classics that you're supposed to read, and you're supposed to like bring it into your Tai Chi, like how you do your Tai Chi. And Dan's written about them in the past, and I used to feel like I understood them, but it's been so long since I read any of them. Off the top of my head, I can't really think like how what was written and how they applied to Tai Chi. So it'll be really interesting to read this book. It'll be really interesting to see how it does apply to the modern martial artist, and whether I can kind of apply it to like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. So that'll be 2 videos there. I think once I've read these books, I'll do one about the life of Dan Doherty and one about whether I can apply the Tai Chi classics to MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, I've mentioned Dan Doherty. I try not to mention names. What I didn't want, because Dan Doherty was such a icon in the Chinese martial arts community back in the 90s, and his reputation was up there, and I didn't want it to seem like I was trying to piggyback off his reputation, or for that matter to make it sound like my opinions were are like kind of his opinions. It's not the case at all. This is all my interpretations of what I was taught and how I was taught, and so yeah, that's why I never mentioned him. But we are where we are, and I think it's quite clear that these are my own thoughts. So that's all I've got to say this week. Let me know what you think about Dan Doherty, if you've ever heard of him, or about Tai Chi in general, or for that matter, how we can save the traditional martial arts from becoming irrelevant, or just that kind of thing that people do in the parks. Alright, catch you soon.